So here we are. Kevin Feige, yet again, kind of. Look, Marvel Cinematic Universe, or rather Marvel Studios, is going to be entering in an interesting direction because a lot of so you had a perfect storm, right? They built the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Obviously, there was an appeal to normies then, but it was also this idea of, okay, they were referencing some source material. Now they have started to go all in on just completely abandoning that part of it, the source material issues. But that doesn't mean they won't create issues within even the normies, right? That they are trying to certainly appeal to. One of the things that I brought up about the Captain Marvel movie, yeah, it was trash. It was dog shit. I mean, objectively speaking, I don't care what the beloved critics like to say. Objectively speaking, I have the receipts on why that movie is a fucking problem. But a lot of folks, unfortunately, definitely the people that don't listen, because they like to think everybody that didn't like Captain Marvel was just a Brie Larson hating man baby. Or excuse me, a woman hating man baby. Now, I had direct criticisms of my issues with that. A lot of it had to do with the characters that they ruined, namely Marvel and Monica Rambeau, for various reasons. You can go look at my Captain Marvel review. I also did a second. I did multiple videos on this, obviously, but the two you can go look at the Captain Marvel review, as well as the unique shoehorn of Captain Marvel. Both of those I did on the movie. And issues that I had with it, objectively speaking, things that are identifiable, things that are not based upon my opinion. And one of those things, though, however, with that Captain Marvel and that issue that you started to see kind of happen, though it started to leak before, but certainly like with the existence of that mere movie, it's just the sheer amount of continuity problems that it caused. It causes so much issues. And I knew that if they continued to go into that direction, they were going to even start to turn off people that they're trying to appeal to, who generally are pigs and just consume anything. They'll only consume anything to a certain degree. So people are already, because of what happened with Endgame and what happened with Loki now, following Endgame, people are starting to obviously point out that there is some conflict with the events that are happening in these movies. Again, stuff that I was mentioning with Captain Marvel, like the mere existence of that movie and supposedly it existing in the past makes it's so many issues. And they didn't even care to address it. That's how you know that they're trying to cater to stupid people, because their whole excuse, like if you watch like it was Endgame, where Rhodey, this heifer who's supposed to be so powerful, hasn't been present for I don't know how long, decades. And Rhodey asked her, "Where the fuck you been?" Basically, where the fuck you been? And she just says, "Well, y'all got heroes. I was on other planets helping people, basically." And everybody just says, "Okay," and they moved on. And I was sitting and watching this movie like, that's not an answer. You didn't answer the question. Where the fuck have you been? They didn't even try. They actually, no, they half-assed try because they could not acknowledge it. So they acknowledge it in a way and then they just move on. So it's like a 30-second dialogue and Carol Danvers says, "I just been away doing shit." And then everybody says, "Oh, okay, that's an acceptable answer." I was like, what? It was like that movie got entered and this is why I said it was a shoehorn. This is what I believed happened with Captain Marvel. Just to reiterate, I believe what happened with Captain Marvel was that they may have thought about making that movie, but she was probably going to get added in later phases. But what happened was it got shoehorned for maybe the people at the top. Maybe they saw the success of Wonder Woman. I don't know. Where they said, no, we need to make sure this movie exists. And we want to put it right there. And we got to sandwich it in there between Endgame and obviously Infinity War, because that will ensure that so many people see it, will hype it up. We got Kevin Feige saying she'll be the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. But what they didn't think about, and because it came from the top, they weren't thinking about how do they make this make sense. You have this crazy powerful character that's supposedly existing in your universe. How do you make sense of the fact that this shit is hitting the fan right there and that person isn't present? They couldn't make it make sense. So what did they do? They just took a bailout. Well, I've been away. Been away. And that was an acceptable answer for these fools. I just been away. I'm not from these other planets that are supposedly I've been helping out. I'm from Earth. And yeah, the shit hit the fan and I wasn't around because I'm over here doing other non-Earth shit. Like, what the fuck? This is what Kevin Feige, though, had to say. I'm covering this and Bounding in the Comics from my man, John F. Trent. Says Kevin Feige claims Marvel Studios does have rules for the multiverse despite Loki and Avengers Endgame endings and contradictions. Marvel Studios boss, I don't believe this, and I'll tell you why in here in a minute. Kevin Feige recently claimed that Marvel Studios does indeed have rules set in place for their foray into the multiverse, despite massive contradictions already taking place in Endgame and a recently wrapped up Loki series. Feige appeared on D23 Inside Disney podcast, an official Disney podcast, where he provided quite a bit of information about what is happening at Marvel Studios. He says at one point in the conversation, Feige is asked about the interconnectedness of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how they keep plot lines straight and when he knows what to reveal and when. He asked if there's a dry erase board that helps them and the Marvel Studios keep track of everything. Well, we used to not need one because it really was just all in our collective imaginations at the studio. See, the fact that, and this is why Kevin Feige has no idea what he's doing. I guess you can't say that. But from a continuity standpoint, which is the most important thing when it comes to comic book based material, all this goes to show and prove is that it was a vanity project for him. It was a vanity project for all of these guys. They're just like throwing shit at the wall at one point. When you say, no, wasn't even trying to keep up with the events, which is something that you have to do from the get-go in order to make it make sense. Feige is admitting right here, like, well, we didn't fucking need that. How do you mean you didn't need it? You needed that from the get-go. That's the most important part. If you're going to have this sort of expanded universe that is going to happen movie after movie, you have to lay that foundation from the get-go. You have to set the rules from the get-go. The fact that you weren't even thinking about that, well, because he says it right here, he was like, we didn't even need it because of our collective imaginations. No, you need a series Bible of sorts. He said, just before the pandemic, we started going, maybe we need a big whiteboard. And then we all went into our houses, so we still have not done that. So even now, it's a free ball, guys. Remember when I said, I can't remember what show or whatever I was talking about, where I was like, I know I've used this analogy multiple times. When I said they closed their eyes, this is what I envision happens at the Marvel office. When they're using characters and all this shit that they are pulling from, now they have a bigger pull because now Disney's in like possession of all the rights to the characters. I believe they close their eyes and they just say, okay, we're going to use that character. That's what I believe that they do, because half this shit don't even make sense. And he's telling me right now, Kevin Feige admits in this podcast that they're not even trying to keep up and make this make sense. And they still ain't done it, though they're starting to think about it. He continued, the truth is, there's a wonderfully dedicated, creative, spectacular team at Marvel Studios, and one person is dedicated full time to each project. So Mary Livanos oversaw WandaVision from start to finish. Zoe Nagelhout oversaw The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on the ground every day from start to finish. Kevin Wright came up with much of what you love about the Loki series, and was right next to Kay Heron, our director, Tom Hiddleston, the entire time. Feige then relayed, so there are people whose sole task is to keep it in their head and deliver it for us. And then when we have interconnected meetings quite often about how things grow and evolve, and Lois D. Esposito and I and Victoria Alonso, who is dog shit, bounce between all those. So something will come up on one show, and then we'll have to sometimes call and say, well, actually, we've got to alter this. We've got to change that, but never to the detriment of the individual projects. If that were to happen, we wouldn't do it. Feige's transition to the multiverse. He says, and as you indicated before we started recording, the multiverse is coming up in a big way. So there is interconnectivity there, and that people have already started to see and suss out. He continued, and I had a meeting this morning with the whole broad Marvel Studios team, going through the multiverse and the rules of the multiverse and how and exactly how to really deliver on the excitement surrounding the multiverse. I hate multiverses, so I'm not excited at all. Only thing that can be positive about it is that they can introduce characters that should have been around that weren't around, but that's not what they're going to use the multiverse for. They may slightly, but for the most part, it's just going to be used for tokenization. Because like with so much with Marvel, that is a topic. When we first had Sam Jackson appear in a cameo at the end of Iron Man, I really thought it would be a relatively small group of people that were excited by that, and then we'd have to educate a broader public about what it meant and who Nick Fury was. Oh, no reference and source material, though you're using Black Nick Fury. But almost instantly, if you remember way back in the summer of 2008, it ignited everyone's imagination. And in the same way, the multiverse is something that we geek out about. I like multiverses are boring as shit. They create continuity errors. They create continuity issues, and all multiverses effectively are, and how they have been historically, is basically for hack writers. This goes for Marvel and DC. Hack writers to be able to tell stories that are off brand for the characters that they're telling the stories upon, meaning that they don't make sense. They create issues from a continuity standpoint. So instead of actually having to follow those rules that had already been laid, you just say it's a different fucking universe. He says, we really love all the storytelling potential it brings, but thought we had to slowly dole out what it was and introducing the conceit even briefly in Doctor Strange and then as a fake out in Spider-Man Far From Home. But I will tell you something. It is more than just fans that are following along the multiverse storyline. It's really exciting even to see it midway through the Loki series now as people respond to possibilities, which is what that's. And I think this is another thing that the multiverse is going to be used to do. It's going to be used as a bait and switch to try to get people stoked on certain things, and then they fucking change on you. More actually people that are more so like knowledgeable on the comic book characters. This is what I believe, and I'll give you my positions. The multiverse is nothing but a new way for them to tell stories based upon characters that we know and love, but actually don't fucking make any sense. It doesn't make sense for the characters, but most importantly, it doesn't make sense for their world even. So if you, because continuity for a lot of arrogant creators, which I believe that's basically like a prerequisite for working for Marvel nowadays. And that's both comic books as well as what we see within the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, so Marvel Studios. Continuity, canon, those are concepts that they don't like because it restricts them, right? See, arrogant creators, and I deal with this all the time in music as well. Arrogant creators don't like rules. See, because their idea of creativity is free for all. It's doing whatever the fuck I want. Does the character have a history? Yeah, I don't care. That's what they say. That's what a lot of creatives do, and obviously, actors, actresses. This is awesome for actors, actresses, directors, producers, and what have you. Right? So they'll do that. They'll put this shit out there, and it doesn't have to make sense. And I think that's what the multiverse is going to be used as. It's going to be used as a way to tell stories that don't fucking make sense, either be it from who we know the character to be in the comics, and even from a timeline perspective when it comes to what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which they've already had a lot of continuities errors, even with the just mere introduction of Captain Marvel, for example. That's what the multiverse is going to be used as. That's what it's historically been used as, and the in like books, comic books themselves. This is why, for example, Crisis on Infinite Earths even existed, to try to eliminate those problems that the multiverse elements create. But that's what it is. It'll be used to tell whatever goofy stories that they want, and expect tokenization galore. They already gave you fucking Black Lokis and all kinds of retarded shit, because that's where we're at. It's going to be tokenization fucking galore. So you'll see black versions, gay versions, trans versions of characters that, hell, you'll see them before you even see the correct version of the character. Best believe. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.